Everyone at Crestmore Pool watched in shock as the officer dragged the soaked black teenager across the concrete. His face scraped against the hot pavement. His arms twisted behind his back at an unnatural angle. Metal handcuffs bit into his wrists so tight they'd leave marks for days. Water dripped from his swim trunks, mixing with the blood trickling from his cheek. Not a single person moved to help him. Parents pulled their children closer. Lifeguards looked away. The wealthy families of Crestmore Country Club stood frozen, phones raised, recording but not intervening. None of them knew that the boy's mother was about to change everything. If you stand against racial profiling and injustice, do me a favor, tap that like button and subscribe. Your support helps stories like this reach the people who need to hear them most. And before we begin, drop a comment telling us which city or country you're watching from. Your voice matters here. Now, here's how everything spiraled out of control. 3 hours earlier, 16-year-old Malik Jordan stepped through the iron gates of Crestmore Country Club carrying nothing but a towel, his headphones, and a dream of one peaceful Saturday afternoon. The sun hung high and golden in a cloudless sky. Kids splashed and laughed in the crystal blue water. Lifeguards chatted lazily in their tall white chairs, occasionally blowing whistles at running children. It looked like a postcard. Perfect. Untouchable. The kind of place where nothing bad ever happened. But Malik wasn't living in a postcard. He was living in America. And that meant he carried something heavier than any towel, a warning his mother had repeated every single day since he was 5 years old. Stay aware. Stay polite. Come home. Malik had earned his membership to this pool. Straight A honors student. Community scholarship recipient. Student body vice president. He'd worked harder than most kids his age would ever understand. He deserved to be here just like anyone else. But the moment he walked in, he felt it. The subtle shift in atmosphere. The way certain eyes followed him across the pool deck. Not staring directly. That would be too obvious, too confrontational. Just tracking, measuring, silently deciding whether he belonged. He ignored it. He'd learned to. You had to, or you'd never go anywhere. Malik found a lounge chair near the deep end. Away from the families clustered around the shallow section. He set down his bag, pulled out his headphones, and let music fill his ears. The tension in his shoulders loosened for the first time all week. He walked to the pool's edge, took a deep breath of chlorine-tinged air, and dove in. For one perfect moment, suspended in cool blue water, he felt free. Near the cabanas on the far side of the pool, Officer Brad Cutter leaned against a white pillar, scanning the crowd with practiced eyes. He was assigned to community presence duty, a polite term for making sure the right kind of people felt safe at Crestmore. Cutter had been a cop for 18 years. He had a wife, a mortgage, and a son Malik's age. Good kid, played varsity baseball, never caused trouble. Cutter told himself he treated everyone the same, regardless of what they looked like. He believed it too. Most people with bias do. His eyes locked onto Malik's swimming laps in the deep end. Something about the boy didn't sit right with him. He couldn't explain it. Didn't need to. His gut was enough. A woman approached. Designer sunglasses, pearl bracelet, the kind of artificial tan that costs $300 a session. She leaned close to Cutter and whispered, "That boy by the diving board? I've never seen him before. I don't think he belongs here." Cutter's jaw tightened. "I'll handle it, ma'am." He pushed off the pillar and began walking toward the pool. His boots thudded against the wet concrete like a countdown. Kids stopped splashing. Parents looked up from their phones and magazines. The air itself seemed to thicken. Malik surfaced from underwater. Water streaming down his face, headphones still sealed in his ears. He was smiling, thinking about nothing, finally relaxed. He didn't see the shadow falling over him until it was too late. Step out of the pool, now. Malik's heart slammed against his ribs. He removed his headphones slowly, carefully, the way his mother had taught him. No sudden movements, hands visible at all times. "Sir." Is something wrong? Cutter's hand rested on his belt, inches from his weapon. I said, get out, don't make me ask again. Malik had no idea that what happened next would be seen by millions, or that help was already on its way. The pool went silent. Splashing stopped. Laughter died mid-breath. Even the lifeguards froze in their elevated chairs, unsure whether to intervene or look away. Every eye at Crestmore Country Club turned toward the deep end, where a dripping teenager stood face-to-face with a uniformed police officer. Malik climbed out of the pool slowly, water streaming down his legs, pooling around his feet on the hot concrete. His mind raced through his mother's instructions, the ones she'd drilled into him since before he could fully understand why they were necessary. Speak calmly. Don't argue. Keep your hands where they can see them. Don't give them a reason. Officer, I'm a member here, Malik said, forcing his voice to stay steady despite the fear crawling up his spine like ice water. My membership card is in my bag. Can I show you? Cutter didn't move. His eyes swept over Malik, the swim trunks, the muscular build, the dark skin glistening with pool water. You don't look like a member. The words hung in the humid air like poison. Everyone heard them. Some parents exchanged uncomfortable glances. Others looked away entirely, suddenly fascinated by their phones, their drinks, their children, anything but the scene unfolding before them. Sir, I earned a scholarship. I have documentation. I didn't ask for your life story. Cutter stepped closer, close enough that Malik could smell coffee on his breath. Show me ID, and don't make any sudden moves. Malik's hands trembled as he pointed toward his bag on the lounge chair 15 feet away. It's right there, in the front pocket. My membership card and my school ID. Don't move. I'll decide what you can do and when you can do it. A memory flashed through Malik's mind, unbidden and unwelcome. He was 8 years old, curled up on the couch with his mother. The TV showed a news story about a black boy, not much older than Malik was now, who'd made a wrong move during a traffic stop. His mother held him so tight he could barely breathe, her voice breaking as she whispered into his hair, "This is why we have rules, baby. This is why you have to be so careful." Back at the pool, Malik kept his hands raised and visible. He moved toward his bag at a glacial pace, narrating every action the way his mother taught him. I'm just reaching for my wallet, sir. My card is inside. I'm not armed. I'm not a threat. His fingers touched the zipper of his bag. Cutter's hand shot out like a striking snake and grabbed Malik's wrist. The grip was iron, painful, grinding bones together. I said, don't move. In one brutal, practiced motion, Cutter twisted Malik's arm behind his back and slammed him face first onto the concrete. Malik's cheek scraped against the rough, sun-heated surface. Pain exploded through his shoulder as his arm was wrenched upward at an impossible angle. A child screamed somewhere in the crowd. A mother yanked her daughter away from the scene, shielding her eyes. Someone, a man's voice, shouted, "He didn't do anything! What are you doing?" But Cutter was already pulling out his handcuffs. The metal clicked around Malik's wrists, cold, tight, final. He lay on the ground, cheek pressed against concrete that burned his skin, tears stinging his eyes, not from the pain, from the humiliation, the helplessness, the crushing weight of knowing he'd done everything right, and it still didn't matter. Phones emerged from every direction. The crowd had transformed into an audience recording the scene for reasons they couldn't quite articulate. Some watched with genuine horror, others with a strange, silent complicity, not helping, but not looking away either. A man near the snack bar muttered to his wife just loud enough to hear, "He must have done something. They don't just arrest people for nothing." But another voice rose louder, cutting through the murmurs. A woman by the diving board, face flushed with anger. "This is racial profiling. That boy didn't do a single thing wrong." Cutter yanked Malik to his feet, gripping his arm hard enough to leave bruises. "Resisting an officer. Trespassing. We'll sort this out downtown." Malik's voice cracked, barely a whisper. "Please, I didn't do anything. I'm a member. Just check my bag." The officer didn't respond. He didn't care. In the parking lot beyond the pool gates, a convoy of black SUVs was pulling through the entrance. The vehicles moved slowly, officially, their windows tinted so dark you couldn't see inside. No one at Crestmore Pool could have predicted who had just arrived, or what would happen when she saw her son in handcuffs. Governor Elaine Jordan hadn't taken a Saturday off in 3 months. Budget negotiations that stretched past midnight. Press conferences where every word was dissected and weaponized. Emergency briefings about crises that never seemed to end. The weight of an entire state pressed down on her shoulders every single day, and most nights she fell asleep at her desk rather than making it home to her own bed. But today she'd carved out 2 precious hours. Just 2. Enough time to surprise her son with ice cream and pretend, for one stolen afternoon, that she was just a regular mom spending time with her kid. She sat in the back of her black SUV, tablet in hand, pretending to review documents. But her mind kept drifting to Malik. His basketball games she'd missed. 7 this season alone. The dinners that went cold while she was stuck in meetings. The way he said, "It's okay, Mom, I understand," even when the disappointment was written all over his face. He was 16 now, almost a man, and she'd missed so much of him becoming one. She pulled up his text from that morning, still unanswered in her inbox. "Have fun at work, Mom. I'll be at the pool. Maybe we can get dinner later?" She hadn't even replied. Too busy reviewing briefings, too distracted by the endless demands of her position. Always too busy for the one person who mattered most. Not today. Today, she would show up unannounced. Watch the surprise spread across his face, maybe embarrass him a little in front of whoever he was hanging out with. That's what moms were supposed to do, right? "We're approaching Crestmore, Governor," her driver announced from the front seat. Elaine smiled, a real smile, not the practiced one she wore for cameras. She imagined Malik's face when she walked through those gates, the exaggerated eye roll he'd give her, the grin he couldn't quite hide. Maybe they'd get strawberry sundaes at that place he loved. His favorite since he was 6 years old and thought 3 scoops was the definition of paradise. Her phone buzzed. Security lead on the radio, his voice professionally flat. "Governor, we're getting reports of a disturbance at the club, some kind of incident near the main pool." Elaine barely looked up from her tablet. Disturbances happened everywhere she went. Rich people complained about parking spaces, pool temperatures, someone's music being too loud. "Handle it. I'm here to see my son, not mediate HOA drama." The convoy rolled through the club's ornate iron gates. Everything looked normal at first. Manicured lawns glowing green in the afternoon sun. Expensive cars lined up in the parking lot. The quiet hum of old money doing what old money does. Then she saw the crowd. A cluster of people near the pool, packed tight, all facing the same direction. Dozens of phones raised like a forest of glowing rectangles. Some people covering their mouths in shock. Others frozen in place, unsure what to do. Something cold slithered through Elaine's chest. A mother's instinct that defied logic or explanation. "Stop the car." "Governor, protocol says we should wait for—" "Stop the car, now!" Before the vehicle fully stopped, Elaine was out the door, her heels clicking rapid fire against the pavement. Secret Service agents scrambled to follow, shouting into their radios, but she was already pushing through the crowd with a force that made people stumble aside. People parted instinctively. Some recognized her face. They'd seen it on campaign signs, on television, on the evening news every single night, but their brains couldn't process why the governor was here. Now, at their country club pool, shoving through them like a woman possessed. Elaine broke through the front of the crowd and stopped dead, a black teenager in handcuffs. Face scraped and bleeding, shoulders slumped in defeat. A white police officer standing over him like a hunter posing with a trophy kill. Her eyes dropped to the boy's feet. White Jordans. Custom red stripe along the side. She'd bought them for his 16th birthday 3 months ago. He'd hugged her so tight she couldn't breathe. Her world stopped. Then it shattered into a million pieces. A sound tore from her throat, Not the composed voice of a governor, not the measured tone of a politician, the raw, primal scream of a mother watching her child be destroyed. Officer Cutter had no idea who was standing behind him. In 30 seconds, his entire career would be over. Elaine Jordan charged through the crowd like a hurricane making landfall. Secret Service agents shouted her name, tried to form a protective barrier around her, but she pushed past them like they weren't even there. Protocol didn't exist anymore. Politics didn't exist. Her title, her position, the entire weight of her office, none of it mattered. There was only her son, her baby, in handcuffs, bleeding, humiliated in front of strangers who stood there recording instead of helping. Her scream echoed across the pool deck, bouncing off the cabanas and the manicured hedges, freezing every single person in place. This wasn't the composed voice that delivered state-of-the-state addresses to packed auditoriums. This wasn't the careful, measured tone that negotiated with hostile legislators. This was something ancient, primal, the sound of a mother's heart shattering in real time. Officer Cutter spun around, his hand instinctively moving toward the weapon on his belt. He saw a black woman rushing toward him at full speed. No badge visible, no uniform, no identification, just pure, undiluted rage in human form. "Ma'am, step back right now." A Secret Service agent stepped between them, badge flashing gold in the afternoon sunlight. His voice left no room for argument. "Stand down, officer, immediately." Cutter's face twisted in confusion. Secret Service? At a country club pool? His eyes darted from the agent to the woman to the convoy of black SUVs lined up at the gate like a presidential motorcade. Then, recognition hit him like a sledgehammer to the chest. He'd seen that face 1,000 times. Campaign signs plastered across the state, news broadcasts every evening. The framed photograph hanging in the police chief's office, signed with a personal message. Governor Elaine Jordan. The most powerful person in the entire state. And the boy he'd just handcuffed and thrown to the ground was her son. The blood drained from Cutter's face so fast he looked like he might faint. Gasps rippled through the crowd like a shockwave. Phones that had been recording casually now pointed with laser focus, capturing every second of what was about to unfold. Whispers exploded into exclamations. "That's the governor. Oh my God. Wait, that's her son?" Elaine didn't acknowledge any of them. She dropped to her knees on the wet concrete beside Malik, her designer dress soaking through instantly. Her hands cupped his face, turning it toward her so she could see the scrape on his cheek, the tears he was fighting to hold back. "Baby, I'm here. Mama's here. It's okay." Malik had been holding himself together through sheer willpower since the moment Cutter grabbed him. The humiliation of being slammed to the ground. The fear of what might happen next. The way everyone watched, but no one helped. He'd locked all of it away deep inside, the way he'd trained himself to do. But seeing his mom, the strongest, most unbreakable person he knew, kneeling beside him in the dirt with tears streaming down her face. He broke. A sob tore from his chest. His shoulders shook violently. All the emotions he'd been suppressing came flooding out in waves he couldn't control, couldn't stop, couldn't hide. "Mom, I did everything right. I did everything you taught me. I kept my hands visible. I spoke respectfully. I explained myself, and it still happened. I know, baby. I know." Elaine held him as tightly as the handcuffs would allow, her face pressed against his wet hair, mother and son. Surrounded by strangers with cameras. Connected by a love deeper than any political title and a shared pain that stretched back 400 years. The moment lasted an eternity, and a single heartbeat at the same time. Then Governor Elaine Jordan stood, slowly, deliberately, like a queen rising from a throne. Her tears didn't stop flowing, but something in her face transformed. The grief hardened into steel. The sorrow sharpened into something far more dangerous. The mother stepped back. The governor emerged. She turned to face Officer Cutter. Her voice was pure ice. "Uncuff my son, right now. Cutter's hands shook so violently he could barely fit the key into the lock. The crowd watched in breathless silence. Every phone captured the moment. The trembling officer, the furious mother, the boy who'd committed no crime. The handcuffs clicked open. Malik rubbed his wrists, angry red marks already forming on his skin like brands. Elaine turned to face the crowd and the cameras now surrounding them. Her voice rang out like a declaration of war. "Call your police chief. Get him here immediately. This state is about to have a conversation it should have had a long time ago." What happened next would be broadcast across every news network in America, and it would start a war. Police Chief Harold Briggs arrived 14 minutes later, red-faced and sweating through his starched uniform shirt. He'd known Brad Cutter for 15 years. They'd started at the academy together. He'd stood as best man at Cutter's wedding. Their families had Thanksgiving dinner together every year. Whatever happened here at this country club pool, Briggs was determined to protect his friend, his officer, his brother in blue. Then he saw the scene waiting for him. The crowd of wealthy witnesses, the forest of phones still recording, the news vans already pulling up to the gates, satellite dishes extending toward the sky. And standing in the center of it all, Governor Elaine Jordan, with her arm wrapped protectively around a teenage boy who looked like he'd just survived a war zone. His stomach dropped through the concrete beneath his feet. Governor Jordan. He approached with his hands visible and his voice carefully measured, already calculating damage control angles. "I'm certain there's been some kind of misunderstanding here. Officer Cutter is one of our finest. 18 years of exemplary service. If we could discuss this privately, I'm sure we can." "There is nothing private about what happened here today." Elaine's voice sliced through his rehearsed speech like a blade. "Your finest officer threw my 16-year-old son face first into the concrete and handcuffed him for the crime of swimming while black. I watched it happen. Everyone here watched it happen. Their phones watched it happen." Briggs glanced desperately at Cutter, then back at the governor. He wasn't ready to surrender his man, not without a fight. "With respect, ma'am, we have protocols for situations like this. The officer received a complaint from a club member about a potential trespasser. He was simply following established procedure. Then show me." Elaine stepped forward. Her eyes locked on Briggs like targeting lasers. "Show me the procedure that authorizes slamming a child's face into concrete without first asking for identification. Show me the protocol that justifies handcuffing a teenager who was calmly reaching for his membership card. Show me, Chief. I'll wait." Silence crashed over the pool deck like a physical weight. Cutter stepped forward, desperation cracking his voice. "Governor." He looked out of place. He made a sudden movement toward his bag. I had to make a split-second judgment call to ensure everyone's safety. "He reached for his membership card." Elaine's voice thundered across the pool, making everyone flinch. "Which you would have seen clearly if you'd asked him a single question before putting your hands on him. If you'd treated him like a human being worthy of basic dignity instead of a threat to be neutralized." The turning point came from the most unexpected place. A white man near the diving board stepped forward. Polo shirt with a country club logo, tennis tan, gold watch, exactly the kind of person Officer Cutter would never have questioned or doubted. "I witnessed the entire thing from start to finish." His voice carried clearly across the crowd. The young man was polite, cooperative. He explained multiple times that he had a membership. The officer escalated the situation for absolutely no reason. "I recorded everything on my phone, and I'm prepared to make an official statement." Another voice joined his, a woman near the cabanas. "I saw it too. The boy never resisted, not once. Not even when he was being thrown to the ground." Then another voice, and another, and another, and the tide was turning, not because of political pressure or fear of the governor, but because of witnesses. Regular people who had watched injustice unfold with their own eyes and couldn't stay silent any longer. Chief Briggs' shoulders sagged like a man watching his world collapse. He looked at Cutter, really looked at him, and saw something he'd been avoiding for years. A man who genuinely, sincerely believed he'd done nothing wrong. That was the true horror of it. Officer Cutter. Briggs's voice was heavy with defeat. You're relieved of duty immediately, pending a full and thorough investigation. Cutter's face crumbled, not with remorse, but with shock, betrayal. He opened his mouth to protest, but Briggs silenced him with a raised hand. Go home, Brad. Right now. Don't say another word. Malik watched his mother throughout the entire confrontation. This woman who balanced the needs of millions of people every single day, who spent her life fighting battles most people never even knew existed. Today, she had fought just for him. Elaine turned toward the news cameras now surrounding the pool gates like a siege army. Her voice carried like a battle cry across the afternoon air. Tonight, I'm not speaking as a governor. I'm speaking as a black mother in America, and the whole country needs to hear what happened here today. By midnight, every news network in the nation would be playing her words on repeat, but it was Malik's final question that would truly haunt America. The press conference happened right there at poolside, cameras flashing like a lightning storm. Reporters shouted questions over each other, microphones thrust forward like weapons. Satellite trucks lined the street outside the country club gates. The whole nation was watching a mother speak from a place of pain that no amount of political training could have prepared her for. Today, my son learned a lesson I never wanted to teach him. Governor Elaine Jordan's voice wavered but refused to break. That in America, his skin color is treated as a threat before his character, his achievements, or his humanity are ever considered. She shared her own experiences then, stories she'd never told publicly before, the times she'd been followed through department stores by security guards who couldn't believe she could afford what she was buying, the traffic stops for infractions that didn't exist, the corporate events where she was mistaken for catering staff despite being the keynote speaker. I am the governor of this state, she said, her voice cracking, and none of that has ever protected me. None of it protected my son today. Then Malik stepped forward into the glare of the cameras. His hands trembled at his sides. His voice shook with emotion he couldn't fully control. The scrape on his cheek was already darkening into a bruise, but he spoke anyway, because staying silent felt worse than the fear. I did everything my mom taught me since I was 5 years old. I kept my hands visible at all times. I spoke calmly and respectfully. I explained who I was and why I was there. I didn't argue. I didn't resist. I did everything exactly right. His voice broke on the last word. And it still happened. So, what am I supposed to do differently next time? Exist less? Be less visible? Disappear? The video clips spread across the internet like wildfire within the hour. Justice. For Malik, trended on every platform before sunset. News networks ran the footage on continuous loop. The confrontation, the handcuffs, the governor's fury, her son's broken voice asking questions that had no good answers. Commentators debated endlessly. Politicians from both parties issued carefully crafted statements. Think pieces multiplied like rabbits. Officer Brad Cutter was suspended by the end of the day and terminated by the end of the week. The department announced immediate implementation of mandatory bias training for all officers. Governor Jordan introduced comprehensive statewide legislation targeting racial profiling in public accommodations, with bipartisan support that would have seemed impossible 24 hours earlier. Messages poured in from teenagers across the country, flooding Malik's social media accounts with thousands of notifications. Your story is my story. Thank you for being brave enough to speak. I've been through the exact same thing. I thought I was completely alone. But eventually the cameras packed up and drove away. The news cycle moved on to the next outrage, the next scandal, the next tragedy competing for attention. And late that night, long after the last reporter had gone home, Malik and his mother sat together on their back porch in silence. The stars spread across the dark sky like scattered diamonds. Crickets sang their endless summer song. The world felt quiet in a way it hadn't all day. Elaine held her son close, the way she had when he was small enough to fit entirely in her lap. I'm so sorry, baby. I should have been there sooner. I should have been there from the beginning. Malik was quiet for a very long time. When he finally spoke, his voice was barely a whisper in the darkness. "Mom. What happens to the kids whose moms aren't governors?" Elaine opened her mouth to answer, to offer some kind of comfort, some kind of reassurance, some kind of hope, but no words came. Because there was no answer, not one that made sense, not one that made it okay, not one that could explain away centuries of this same story repeating over and over again. So she just held him tighter, the way she wished she could protect him forever, the way she knew, deep in her heart, that she couldn't. Mother and son, silhouetted against the night sky, holding on to each other in a world that had once again reminded them exactly what they were up against. Somewhere out there, another mother was having the same conversation with her child, and another, and another. If this could happen to the governor's son in broad daylight, surrounded by witnesses and cameras, imagine the stories that never get told. Like, subscribe, and tell me in the comments what moment shocked you the most. More stories are coming. Thanks for watching.